Hi everyone, I'm Steve Scott. I was one of Ken's students way back in the day, in the very early 1980s. It's hard to believe it's been more than 30 years, more than 3 decades, since we sat in Dwight Bentel Hall in the Newsbreak 91 classroom and listened as that gentle bear of a man with the booming baritone voice imparted wisdom not only about radio news, but also about life in general. Gene and I are very sorry that we can't be with you in person today as we honor Ken's memory. We have a long-standing commitment to be at a wedding today, ironically also there in Northern California. But it's going on right now and we just can't be in both places at the same time. So we're very sorry that we can't be with you in person. But I'm glad that I do have a chance to share a few thoughts with you. Quite frankly, Ken Blasé was the best teacher I ever had. Elementary school, high school, college, life. Was there a better teacher than Ken Blasé? Was there a teacher who cared more about his students than Ken Blasé? If there was, I can't imagine who that might have been. I'd like to share a quick story. Many of you have heard this story, but I think it illustrates how Ken would work so hard to make his students the best young radio broadcasters they could be and the best people that they could be as well. This story dates back to the early 80s. I was on the Newsbreak 91 staff along with many of you who are here today. Boy, did we have a great show, a half hour of all news, really the same format and style that I do all these years later as an afternoon anchor at WCBS News Radio here in New York. It was a great show, and I'm pretty sure that I thought I was pretty good. Well, Ken had a great ear. He picked up a particular speech pattern that I had when I read my radio news stories. I had never picked this up, but Ken picked it up. It basically went like this. It's hard to duplicate, but I'll try to do it. The last 4 words of every sentence I would read in a newscast had the same cadence, the same speech pattern. The last 4 words kind of went ba-ba-ba-ba. Ba-ba-ba-ba. Very staccato. Ba-ba-ba-ba. Didn't matter if it was an up sentence or a down sentence. Nah, for me it was ba-ba-ba-ba. It ended the same every time. I never picked up on it, but of course Ken did with that keen ear of his. And rather than just point it out to me and say, hey Steve, here's something you can work on, you know what Ken did? Ken took an entire half-hour Newsbreak 91 newscast and edited out the last 4 words of every sentence that I read in that half-hour newscast. Ba-ba-ba-ba. Ba-ba-ba-ba. They were all the same. He must have spent hours doing this because he spliced them all together. This is before digital editing. This is using a razor blade and tape and splicing it all together. And he took out every sentence from a half-hour newscast. It had to take hours. After he spliced them all together, he called me aside. He said, Steve, I've picked up on something. I'd like you to listen to this. So I did. Ba-ba-ba-ba. Ba-ba-ba-ba. Oh. Never noticed that before. The first couple times I heard it go by, I'm like, all right, I get it, Ken, thank you. That's great. Thank you very much. You can stop the tape now. That wasn't Ken's style. No, Ken kept that tape rolling and rolling and rolling. Ba-ba-ba-ba. 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 Over and over. 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, I don't know, it might have been 5 minutes by the time it ended. Ba-ba-ba-ba. I couldn't tell you how long it was. I was in tears by the end. I was embarrassed, but I got the message. I never ba-ba-ba-ba again. That's the kind of teacher that Ken Blasé was. And that's how hard Ken would work to try to make his students better broadcasters and better people. To Judith and your family, thank you very much for sharing Ken with us. He was a big influence on a lot of us, not just as a teacher, but also as a friend. Judith, as you know, Ken would often email me and say he was listening to me on the WCBS web stream. Boy, did that make me nervous. I didn't want to ba-ba-ba-ba with Ken listening or have any kind of screw up. So thank you to you and your family for sharing Ken with us. To all of my colleagues, my friends, my cohorts from back in the day, I'm sorry I can't be with you today. I know we all have a lot of great stories that we could share about Ken, and I miss you, and I'm glad that we have social media where we can at least stay in touch that way. And finally to Ken, and I know you're watching this and listening and probably editing me as I go. No more ba-ba-ba-bas. Thank you, Ken. Thank you.